Michael E. Parker here, and as you can see, this is a special poolside at night in the backyard that we are doing, and I have a wonderful episode for you today. We are talking about artificial ignorance. We're going to find out what this really means and why we need to keep our eye on AI. Now, today I have a wonderful, wonderful guest, Nick Vieira, and Nick Vieira has been a leader in my companies for many, many years. I think, Nick, I guess you've been in the company now for, I guess, almost 2 decades, wouldn't you say?
It's a little scary to think of it like that.
Yeah, that means we're getting older, huh?
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Well, I just want to say this is such a pleasure. You know, those of you who don't know, Nick is often behind the camera, behind all of our episodes and our shows and our videography, our media, doing so much with technology and our computers and our servers and all those things. And I always tease him because he's behind the camera. And I said, one of these days, I'm going to get you from behind the camera, because sometimes he'd be teasing, I'll be under the spotlight. I got all this going on. I said, no, one day you're going to feel the wrath. And here you are, Nick. You are finally, we got you here. Yes, it's time. It's coming on, too.
I know.
But no, it's so good to have you here. And Nick, one thing I've always respected about you is your ability to learn technology. Like, from a very young man, I witnessed you get around people who could teach you things, and you just being hungry to know how things worked. And where did that come from? Ever since I've known you, you were not afraid to jump in and learn about technology. Where did it all start?
I don't know exactly. I was told when I was as little as 5 years old, I used to hook up the TV and VCR at home.
Really?
Because we only had one VCR.
Yeah.
But we had a TV in my parents' room and a TV in the front room. So
right.
I wanted to bring it out to the front room. I had to do it.
Right. Now, we got to have a youth alert real quick. A VCR is this big tape, and you put it into this big old machine, and then you could see something that was recorded back in the day. I just had to do a youth alert.
Tape.
Go ahead.
They don't know nothing about that no more.
Yeah.
But so I would do things like that. I used to go in the garage and play with old stereos.
Yeah.
Take things apart. And even to this day, whenever I see something, it always hits my mind, no matter what it is. How does that work?
Wow, yeah.
No matter what, whether it's my car, and anybody will tell you, anything I have, I have to know, and it's something inside of me wants to know, even if you're going to fix it and I'm not, I still want to know, well, how does it work though?
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah. Now, how did that grow from wanting to know how things work to getting deeper into being intrigued by how technology worked?
I think it started in more the AV arena when I was younger, because it was so complicated and it was something no one really knew about. And so I think the kind of the magic of it intrigued me to want to know more. Like I liked science, I liked math, and so just to say, well, I know this has something behind it.
Right.
There's a system to it.
Yeah.
And so since no one knows it, I want to learn it.
Yeah.
So I found the few people who knew something about it, and I just, like you said, I was really thirsty for it. And everything that happened, I would say, hey, can I come?
Yeah.
Can I watch?
Right.
Can you fix it? And I would just question them the whole time. And luckily, they were patient enough to answer and not get annoyed.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying, because today there's so many issues with, it just feels like technology is moving so fast, you feel like you can't keep up. Yeah. But it's that's that URCO spirit that you had to say, I can make a choice to learn this. I can make a choice to press past my fear and begin to start asking questions. And literally sometimes the difference between people who understand technology and those who don't is the one who is willing to ask questions and just tinker with it and go through the ups and downs, right? And I've learned that, even from you, that sometimes it's literally just trying. Yeah. So what would you say about that? Because I think sometimes people have this perception that you got to be this big whiz with a big brain to learn technology.
No. And as you said before, even in your challenges with education and things like that, it's never really magic to anything. A lot of times it's work, it's controlling your fears, not letting something make you feel like it's too far out there.
Right.
And so that is the biggest part of it, is you have to just go try it. And nowadays, even more than before in my day, there's so much accessible information.
Yeah.
It really is just a matter of sometimes just having a little bit of patience.
Yeah.
Looking it up, finding what other people say about it, because you may not even know the terms to put it in.
Right.
But you just start throwing out any information you have, and see, the internet, it'll put something back.
Yeah.
So then you can just start leading your way into knowledge.
Yeah. And I bet you wish you had YouTube back in the day with all the projects we used to work on, and you have to figure it in. I was the one causing you the stress. Like, we need this to figure this out. How are we going to do this and that? And you didn't have those things to help. And, speaking of and I want everyone to know something out there about Nick, is that, there's a lot of credentials and expertise I could tell you about Nick. I mean, he's more than qualified in so many disciplines of technology, even though it feels like you never can conquer it, so you're always growing and learning. But one thing that I appreciate about Nick, and I often tell entrepreneurs this, is that when you're trying to bring people onto your team and you want people to work with you, today it's not all about just degrees and certificates and stuff. You want to know who can do it. You know what I mean? Like, some people have certificates and piece of paper, but they ain't been in the trenches and really solving problems and doing it. And that's one thing I like about you, is you've been in real situations, and sometimes in live situations while I'm on stage where we have had to figure something out. And there is no better education than the education of experience. Do you agree?
100%. 100%. And that's the biggest challenge that a lot of technical positions have. And they'll tell you, right, we have, even when the economy was in a bad situation, we had tons of openings in very technical positions because there's just not enough people that have the ability to fill them. Even with degrees, even with certifications, they still have to know how to do it.
That's right. Now, this brings me to, when we're talking about the human mind and what the brain can do, still the greatest creation in the universe.
Absolutely.
The brain, right? Yeah. And there's such a small percentage of the brain we even use. And that brings us to this discussion of, why did I call this episode Artificial Ignorance? And when you think about artificial intelligence and the fact that now we're not just getting into a computer being able to have code and process something from an input to give us an output, we're actually teaching a computer how to think, right? And giving it parameters that it can work within, and teaching it to go out and get information and actually try to go through a set of reasoning type of code. Yeah. And what is so scary about this, I guess, and don't get me wrong, I'm not artificial intelligence bashing out here. We use it too. Yeah. We chat GPT, all that stuff. We're all in, but artificial intelligence can only pull from what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if there's something out there that's not true, even if the majority is saying it, and this could be around health, food, fitness, morality issues, this is where we can have artificial ignorance, where there's something going out to get something that was ignorant before it came to get it. Yeah. What's your take on this?
Well, I mean, it says it in the title of the term artificial intelligence. Even it's still artificial.
That's good.
So everything in technology that we do, as far as automation goes and things like that, is we're trying to model the brain, model processes.
That's right.
But it is still artificial, which means it has its boundaries. So the way our brains have developed and we were created, we create dynamic connections in our mind, creativity, right? There's some things that technology cannot really be creative. It can repeat patterns.
Right.
It can calculate new patterns to a degree, but still there's no emotion in it. There's no feeling. There's no reason.
Right.
Human reasoning. Behind it. So because of that, it's always going to be limited, to your point, to whatever it's exposed to. kind of like humans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right.
You know, we're limited sometimes our exposure, but again, it creates ignorance.
Yeah.
And so we are, you know, we can be artificially ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah. Now think about this, and this is and I love the environment we have in our company and just around our network of community and friends. And, you know, we're not just all working in the enterprise, but we become family.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no racial lines, ethnic lines. You know, we're like one big family. You know, I feel like you're in my natural family, and I know you feel the same about me. And that's, I love that about our team. But just think about this for a minute. If we had artificial intelligence in the 40s or the 50s, and I was to type in, you know, what a man was or who could do this or that, it would have brought me back information that said somebody shouldn't be able to go to a certain restaurant or get on a certain bus, or we could go back further, it would say some person was even a full man, right?
Right.
When you look at some of the things that have happened, and not to even harp on the racial prejudice and issues and slavery and all that, it's just the fact that sometimes the majority is wrong.
Yeah.
And if the majority is wrong, I can have something artificial, to your point, that's bringing me back ignorance. And so where are we ignorant today? And therein lies the dark side of this. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think even internally, I always feel a need to understand how something works, because it helps me to make a moral decision, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's about fixing a car or fixing a computer or whatever, I'm able to make a decision that I can stand behind as a man and feel good about.
Right.
And so I think that's the important thing now is people they can't give up. We can use the tools to be more productive, but we have to understand them so we know where the pitfalls are, where the traps are, like you're bringing up, right? We know that we might get ignorance back, so we can begin to look at it and separate what's good and bad according to our moral compass,
right? And
what we feel is right.
Yeah,
that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were sharing with me, we were talking not long ago about a episode you had watched, and it was kind of about like some bias or something. Explain that again. I thought that was very intriguing.
So it was a documentary that I watched. It was about, I think it was called Coded Bias or something to that extent. And so it was about an African-American student at MIT that, you know, was going through the program, and they were doing a lab or something on facial recognition, and it was a project, and it wasn't working for her. Like
wow.
It wasn't properly recognizing as it should. And so she started digging more into it.
Right.
And come to find out it was because the way that the intelligence was programmed, that it recognized more features according to like European or you know, Caucasian descent.
Right.
Because that's who developed the technology.
Wow. Yeah.
And then they went even deeper into some algorithms and black box type functions that in AI, that's a part of AI, is that you know, everything is learned off the past. But if your past was imperfect, your output's going to be imperfect. Right. Right? Because it doesn't have a moral compass. It can't. And they even had a concern about that not too long ago. I can't remember where I saw that. But their concern was, I think it was someone asked a chat GPT question, and it returned some results that were inaccurate. Right. They were accurate. But it was a non-scientific question, and it gave an output and did not disclaim that this was a something people felt. An opinion or something. Right. Correct. Right. And they didn't display the multiple opinions as opinions. It took the majority, I guess, or however it weights its decisions. Right. It took those and formulated opinion that it posed as a fact.
Right. Because if it doesn't have a moral compass, the only compass it has is what the majority of people did, what the majority said. Right. And if we were in certain times in history, if you would listen to the majority, it would have been very dangerous, right? And so I think what you're saying is so powerful in what you're sharing, because this lets us know we have to use artificial intelligence and make sure artificial intelligence doesn't use us.
Absolutely.
And we don't lose our sense of humanity and our sense of, like you said, who I am and how do I feel about what content I'm going to use, what image I'm going to show.
Yeah.
And another aspect of this, is just the fact that technology has always had the danger of potentially making us lazy. And I'm going to use just something as simple as a calculator.
Yeah.
And I remember when you couldn't use a calculator in some of the classes that I were in, then you start in certain classes you could use it. And we've all been, impact, like, if I'm honest, me too. It's like, it's like, where's my calculator? Like, where's that app?
Yeah.
And you used to do long division, carry one, do all that stuff. And it has slowly made us less mathematically sharp, right? If we're honest. So that's just with math. If something starts to think about how we should speak, what we should say, and what we should do, could it slowly be making us more ignorant to how to think for ourselves? I mean, what a deep thought. I mean, what's your take on that?
I think it's been proven outside of even AI, society does that. You look at people speaking in text.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
it's the same thing, right? Is people using slang words in a way that they can't even get away from them.
Right.
They don't even know the correct word.
In their makeup, they don't even know what it's supposed to be.
What it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like we've changed the form of the English language and how to express ourselves just because society. So imagine if people are going to technology for education.
Yeah.
So imagine if that education is teaching them something that's incorrect,
right,
you're bringing up, which is a major problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, just in closing on this, when you think about, keeping our eye on AI, I think, a word of advice to everyone is, to me, that this is some powerful technology that is really going to change the game for all of us that are trying to do things in business, trying to be more effective. It can streamline, it can cut costs, it can save time, it can do all of these beautiful things. But we must make a decision on what we don't want it to do.
Yes.
And I think that's the key. Everyone's thinking about how to use it, but we have to also remember to think about how not to be used. And so, any final thoughts on, as technology continues to evolve, how do we stay on our toes to make sure we don't get pulled into something we didn't mean to?
Well, to me, it's kind of like the mindset we have to have in cybersecurity is that, you have to always be willing to learn. You have to always be alert. You can't replace nothing. No tool can replace carefulness and effort.
Right.
And so technology has a way, and we've seen this through time, and we've talked about health in different topics that we've discussed.
Right.
And that's a big issue, right? Is that technology tends to make us lazy.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing I think is that we can't be afraid to work.
That's good.
We can't be lazy.
Right.
And to your, like you mentioned, and like I said earlier, you have to want to represent who you are and be willing to work for it. Because if you're not, who are you?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I mean, you basically have lost yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And you said something, I know this is the last thing, but you touched on something I just got to hit real quick: cybersecurity.
Yeah.
What is going to go on when the hackers figure out how to use this?
Yeah, they already are.
And I know they're already playing with it. They have to be, right? And what if I say, tell me the best way to break into a car?
Yes.
Right? What's the best way to hurt someone? You know what I mean? Like, where's the boundaries here? And so we're going to have to keep our eyes and ears open. And I think you said it best, not be afraid to do the work. It's still something different about that real vegetable that came out of the ground and grew naturally than some of the stuff that we don't know how it came about, right? But I want to thank you so much, Nick, for being on this episode. I mean, this is just great. Any last words you want to say? Because I told you we was going to get you here one day, and you did a fine job, by the way. Anything you want to say?
No, I don't really have nothing specific. I want to say appreciate you having me on. Look forward to in the future.
Yeah.
I definitely don't mind. For those of you who don't know, I give people a really hard time in front of the camera, especially when they show a little bit of nervousness. I do it with the heart of trying to make them relax. It doesn't usually work, but I'm open, and now they know I got it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and by the way, I went kind of easy on you though, but you did good. No, you did good. No, but in all seriousness, this has been such a treat to have Nick Vieira with us. I want to thank all of you for joining in on another episode here at You Are a CEO, and as you can see, we got to make sure that we don't let anything artificial take away the real, but we learn how to use artificial intelligence to do the things that are best for us, to help us motivate and grow our businesses, to grow our wealth, to improve our knowledge, to help us get to places quicker, but make sure we also are conscious not to lose ourselves, who we want to be, what we want the people to be that are around us, and making sure we continue to shape the world that's important to us if we really want to have that fulfilling life that we all deserve. Remember, we are still the CEO of our life. No matter how many technologies come out, you are the only one that can make a decision of what you choose to do. No one can do that for you. Every single day, you have to wake up and make a choice of the life you want to live. And we push you here at You Are a CEO to keep running the business of you. Until next time, we'll see you on the next episode. I'm Michael E. Parker, and keep doing everything you can to make sure you don't become artificially ignorant. I'll see you next time.